Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. So this is a Montgomery Ward's Western Field single shot bolt action 410. And it was probably made in the first decades of the 20th century. It's only marked Western Field in 410 gauge. There's no serial number. So there's no really good way to track this thing. It was very, very inexpensive. I think I paid $75 for it. And it has some features we don't normally associate with guns these days. For example, the bolt does not cock the striker. That has to be done manually. And this, since it has a floating firing pin, this does function as a safety of sorts. I would say it's probably relatively drop safe. There is also a repaired crack in the stock, and the stock is very, very plain. It's basically just a flat plank that has been shaped to make a stock for the shotgun. It's secured by a single nut here with a coin slot. And overall, it's quite simple. Now, it does have a rear sight of sorts, which is helpful, and a bead front sight. And it's lightweight. I don't think it weighs quite 5 pounds. And overall, it's just a very nice old shotgun. And of course, it is chambered for standard 410. But my brother Joe is in need of a garden gun for dealing with wascally wabbits and other pests. And a 410 shotgun seems to fill the bill nicely, although it is a bit overpowered, possibly for the use, and noisy. So, in Tinker fashion, I worked up a solution. This is a 44 Colt casing. 45 Colt does not quite fit in this bore. The tolerances have varied over the years, and it's just a little too tight, so I went with the 44 caliber. And I had 44 Colt brass lying around, so I used that. Now, this has a thick leather wad, over 3 grains of sport pistol, and 1/4 ounce, 105 grains of number 7.5 shot. And I had some 44 Magnum brass lying around, which holds 150 grains of the 7.5 shot, again over 3 grains of sport pistol. So these are quite economical to load, and the only reloading tool you really need is a priming tool and to deprime them, because they work quite well in their expanded form. And there's not really enough pressure there to distort the brass. Now, I did fire one of these short shells last night into clear ballistics gel and got about 4.5 inches of penetration, which, yes, it's only at 10 feet, but that certainly seems adequate for garden pests. So today I took these out and shot patterns with them. Let's have a look at that. Okay, we're going to try the short brass load with 105 grains of number 7.5 inch shot, which is an actual 1/4 ounce, on the left target, and the long brass on the right hand target. Let's see what happens. The target falls over. That's what happens. Okay, I better do this quick before the wind kicks up. By the way, the long brass holds 150 grains of shot, so 3/8 of an ounce. So, these are not that loud, but they are sharper than I expected. Okay, let's have a look at the results downrange. So first the short brass, which is 44 Colt brass, and I aimed a bit high on that. But the pattern density overall is certainly acceptable at the 12 or so yards I was shooting at. And much nicer pattern density from the longer brass, the 44 Magnum casing. So I do need to remember to use a 6 o'clock hold with this, with that bead. But I'm going to call that a pretty satisfactory result. So that was pretty satisfactory, although I do have to remember to make a 6 o'clock hold on the target because it shoots a little high at the 12 or so yards I was shooting. And pattern density was better with the 44 Magnum, of course. It has almost 50% more shot. But overall, pretty happy with those results. Now, they were about 116 decibels, which is a little louder than I'd prefer, but not bad. And they had a sharper report. These may, I doubt it, but these may actually be going supersonic, which I may dial things back a little and see if I can get a less sharp report as I'm working on things. So let's go to the tabletop and have a closer look at the shotgun itself. So the Western Field, you can see where the stock has been repaired. Again, very plain, very simple, and in its day, I have no doubt, very, very inexpensive. This was just sort of a knockabout gun, everyday sort of gun that farmers might use for hunting small game or controlling pests. And it's rather a nice piece of wood for such a pedestrian shotgun. And it's in decent shape overall. The bore looks pretty good. There is the sort of rear sight, which sort of works, and the bead front sight. The barrel is about 22.5 inches long, something like that, just rather odd. And as you can see, there is an ejector pin on the breech face and a proper extractor. A lot of guns of this sort have a extractor in the bed, but this should theoretically actually eject 410 cartridges. It does not eject my low brass little little jury rigged loads. And again, as I mentioned, it does not cock on open or close. You have to manually cock the striker and manually lower it. And with the striker cocked, you cannot operate the bolt, but you can make you can make it fall. That's suboptimal. So, best carried on safe, in other words, with the striker down, and cock it when you are ready to fire it. P320 wasn't the first. The turret is quite light, very nice, and overall, it's a pretty happy little gun. I may clean this up a little bit, but it's already been filled and it's not a problem. I just don't like the way it looks. Now, to make the shells, I first went to my lathe with a section of 1/2 inch 01 tool steel drill rod and bored it out to the appropriate diameter. In this case, I used a .400 drill bit, which drilled somewhat larger, as they tend to. And then I hardened the cutting part, and it is very sharp. And it punches wads very nicely out of thick leather and overshot cards out of cardboard, which, just as you would expect. So these are loaded with a thick leather wad, which is pushed all the way down onto the powder. And then I scoop the shot up, level the top off a bit, and then just press the card in. And I use a generous drop of lacquer spread over the card and around the edges to secure the shot load. And that seems to work very well. I have the dies. I could crimp these, but I just don't see the need. And that's an extra step that I just don't necessarily want to take. But overall, very pleased with the shotgun. And it's a good, useful old gun. So we will be taking this out to pattern it properly with commercial 410 shotgun shells. That will be part of our Sergeant Joe and my bunny gathering trip out to Ben's property. He's having, we're not sure quite when that's going to happen. He's having a few back problems this week. But when those are resolved, we will be going out, patterning this at 25 yards with commercial ammo, and hopefully shooting some bunnies. So, I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon. This is very much a shoestring operation, and your contributions help more than you know. I'd also like to thank channel benefactors, those individuals and businesses that have contributed to the channel in innumerable ways and really helped make this work. And as always, shout out to Rain City Shooting Center for providing material support to the channel. So I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.